All right, this is the April 1st video for pre-algebra, and yesterday I had you start a two-step process for doing negative numbers and working with negative and positive integers. I had you just do the first step, and so I want to check those to make sure you did those correctly. Make sure you're sending those in though for your daily assignment credit. I'm not able, because they're not physical copies, to go in and correct them and send back feedback. Plus I have so many classes and so many students' work coming in, there'd be no way to keep that updated. So what I'm going to do at the beginning of each video is show the correct answers to the ones before, and that way you can check them and make sure I'm giving you daily credit, the points for turning that in and doing the work that I could see you tried, but then you'll correct them here and have them for your notes correct. So the first problem was that 12 plus negative 9, so that should have come out as 12 minus 9. Let's do that in a different color because that's going to be hard to see. 12 minus 9 should have been the first one when you change that double sign. Number 2, you should have negative 3 plus 4. Okay, so the minus minus. Let's do this one. Oh, that's number 2. Yeah, number 3 was negative 17 plus negative 12. When you change that, that becomes negative 17 minus 12. Okay, and then number 4, you had 15 minus negative 14. Oops, 15 minus negative 14, that was the original problem, so that minus becomes 15 plus 14. Okay, and then number 5, you have, let's see, you had negative 15 minus positive 8. You change the double sign, you get negative 15 minus 8. Okay, negative 15 minus 8. So here's your answers to those problems. Make sure you're checking those. We are going to come back and actually find the value of these at the end of this video, but so keep them safe, keep them where you can get back to them. But basically that's what those should have came out. Just doing the first step, just getting rid of double signs. Okay. The second step of the two-step process. Now, I would maybe put this up by the first step if you're trying to keep that organized, or even this definitely. So the first step, if you want to even I would almost make this a page of its own if you want to set it off to the side, because you're going to keep going back to this two-step process. So the first step was check for double signs and get rid of double signs. So get rid of double signs. So that's what we just did, and that's the first step. Okay, so you're going to get rid of the double signs first. Do that on every problem first. If it doesn't have one, then you just go past the first step. The second step has an A and B. Okay, so there's an A and there's a B. Okay, and so the first part of step 2, so 2A, I guess you could say, is if the two numbers that you're working with are 3 or 4, however long it gets. So I'm going to write like this. If it has the same sign, actually, sorry. If they have the same sign, because you're working with more than one number now. Then add the numbers. So you're going to add the numbers. Okay, add the numbers, that's the number sign, and keep the sign the same. Okay, some examples of that. So here's what that could look like. And I'm going to just put some different examples. 8 plus 5, 12 plus 19. Okay, here's 2 examples of that. Now you say, well, wait a minute, how do I know they had the same sign, or what? That's what you're looking for. So if they have the same sign, meaning this number and this number have the same sign, either they're both positive or later we're going to look at both negative, then you add the numbers and keep the sign the same. Let's break that down on what I'm talking about. Here's two numbers. Now what your brain has to do, for so long you've learned that as just 8 plus 5. You did it as 13, that's fine. But for what we're doing here, you have to determine that this is a positive 8, which it is. Even though there's no positive sign there, it is positive, okay? Because it's not negative. If it was negative, there'd be a negative there. But it is positive, and so is the 5, okay? The 5 has a positive sign there. If it was negative, it'd be 8 minus 5, okay? That would be that the 8's positive, but the 5 is negative here, okay? It's got a negative in front of it. So first you have to determine if they have the same sign. So it's positive and it's positive, okay? Same thing with this one. This one's positive, this one's positive. Okay, it's a positive 12, it's a positive 19. Well, if they have the same signs, then you add the numbers, the two numbers, the 8 and 5, which is 13, okay? And you keep the sign the same, meaning if they're both positive, it's a positive 13. Now, we're not going to write plus 13 because we don't need that positive sign. It's already assumed that it's positive because it doesn't have a negative there. So 8 plus 5 is 13. We already know that. We know how to do that. But you're going to see when they're both negative why this actually is a good rule to remember. So 12 plus 19 is 31. You add them together, and then they're both positive, so it's a positive 31. You say, well, I already know how to add two numbers. Okay, well, what happens if you've got negative 8 minus negative 3? Okay, negative 8 minus negative 3. Now here, or it's actually negative 8 minus 3, okay? Negative 8 minus 3. When you look at this rule, they have the same signs. This one's negative, and this one's negative. Now I know you're saying, well, that's negative 8 minus 3. But just look at them as their own numbers. Like if you determine, hey, is this number positive or negative? Totally look at it away from the negative 3. And you say, well, it's negative. Well, same thing with this number. I'm going to take the negative 8 out of equation. You're looking at each number individually. It's a negative 3. So they're both negative. Okay? In that case, what you're going to do then is you're going to add the numbers together, just what this rule says. So you're going to go over here, maybe off to the side if you need to do it off to the side, and add 8 and 3. And you say, why are you adding if it says to subtract? Because we're following this rule. If you sit and try to kind of go through, like the next one I'm going to have you do, if you're trying to do negative 15 minus 37 and trying to make sense of it, it's going to be hard. When you follow the rules, it will do them the correct way every time. So going back to this one, I added the numbers 8 and 3 and I got 11, and I keep the sign the same. Well, both signs are negative, so it is a negative 11. Now I want you to think about that. If you owed the bank $8 and then took away $3 more, went 3 more down the negative way, owed 3 more, then you would owe a total of 11. That's why you add the numbers together so you can see how much your debt is. It's the same thing with this one. You're 15 in the hole and you're going 37 more in the hole. Now, this one you couldn't do on a number line, but you're starting down at negative 15 and then you're going 37 more down the negative. So what you have to do is you have to add the numbers together. So 15 plus 37. Okay, and you get 52. Okay, I just added the two numbers together. And because they're both negative, it's a negative 52. Okay, so you were 15 in the hole, you went another 37 in the hole. That makes you 52 in the hole. So what you're doing is if they're both positive, then you add them together and they stay positive. We've learned that since grade school. But with this, if they're both negative, which they are, you're in the hole, you're going further in the hole, you add those numbers together still, so 8 and 3 is 11, and because they're both negative, it's a negative 11. This one, it's negative 15, and then you've got a negative 37, so you combine them, and you're at negative 52. Okay, so that's the first thing, okay? is that's the first, that's, like I said, first step, check for double signs. Second step, this is 2a right here. If the signs are the same, keep the sign the same, add the numbers. Okay? 2b, and I'm not quoting Shakespeare, 2b, and I'm actually going to erase step 1, so I got a little more room here, because I was running out of room on that one. My boards are much smaller at home. So 2, still step 2, but part B is if the signs are different, if they have different signs, so the two numbers, if they have different signs, so just copy this down for right now, and you can keep this and keep coming back to it. They have different signs. Subtract, so if they have different signs, subtract the smaller numeral, and I'm going to explain why I'm using the word numeral here. The smaller numeral from the bigger. Okay, and then, so after you do that, you're going to keep the sign the same as the bigger numeral. Okay, and I'm going to put some examples of that up here, what that looks like. So if they have different signs, subtract the smaller numeral from the bigger numeral and keep the sign the same as the bigger. And I know that's a lot of words, and it's like, what in the world? Once you see it as numbers, it'll hopefully make a little more sense. So here's an example, 7 minus 4. And we know how to do that, so that's why I started with that one. 6 minus 9. And then I'm going to put up there 15 minus 76. Okay? So let's first look at 7 minus 4 and see why it fits into this rule. Even though we've learned this from a small age, it fits into this rule, and so you can keep using it as you go on, as it gets bigger to where you're like, oh, I haven't seen things like that. Okay, so 7 minus 4, we know we answer is 3. You don't have to make that harder than it is. 7 minus 4 is 3. But to fit it into this rule, to see why that is 3, is if they have different signs. And you look, you say, well, they don't have different signs. They do. This is a positive 7. Remember? This is a positive. Even though there's not a plus sign there, it is positive. And this is a negative 4. Okay, and you say, well, isn't it just minus 4? Well, but you're going 4 in the negative direction. Okay, so 7 was at the positive, you're going in the negative. So one's a positive, one's a negative. Best thing to do if you're still, this is the hardest thing of this, is determining the signs. Just cover up everything but the number, or cover up the number after that, everything after that. That's a positive 7. And then once you use that positive 7, cover it up and you have a negative 4. So that's positive, that's negative. Same thing with this one. Just cover up everything after it. That's a positive 6. And because you use that 6, cover it up, and that's a negative 9. So it's a positive negative. Okay? Once you see that, then it fits into this. One of them's positive, one of them's negative. So you're going to subtract the smaller numeral. The reason why I use numeral is when you're talking about values, okay, you're talking about values, this is a small value because it's negative 76. But if you just remember to go up here and subtract the smaller numeral, the number that's smaller, and get 3, okay, and you say, well, I already knew that was 3. But you're going to see why we do that when we get to harder problems. But you're going to do 7 minus 4, the smaller number from the bigger. You get 3, and then you keep the sign the same as the bigger number. Well, which was bigger, 7 or 4? 7's bigger. It's positive, so this is a positive 3. Okay? So this was positive, that's why this stays positive. Let's do this one and see why that's a little bit different. One's positive, one's negative, so it fits into this rule. Okay? So I'm gonna subtract the smaller from the bigger. Well, in this case, I gotta flip it. Yes, I know that it's written the other way, but for this rule, you're going to follow the rule, what the rule says. So 9 minus 6 is 3. It's also 3, but the bigger number is 9, and it's negative, so this is a negative 3. Okay, now if you're trying to figure out, like I said, it's going to be hard if you're just trying to make sense, but just so you see, if you had $6 in the bank and you took away 9, you'd be 3 in the hole. Okay, but if I promise you, if you use these rules and get more practice, and it's going to take practice, probably next video we're just going to do some more practice, but it's going to take practice to kind of get the hang of this. Keep going back and watching. Just for right now, I want to mainly make sure you get these rules written down and that you do these first problems. Okay, this one is, we're going to go over here. Okay, we're going to subtract the smaller number from the bigger. Okay, so 76 minus 15, that's the smaller number from the bigger. We're going to get 61. And then we keep the sign as the bigger number. This is the bigger number, so it's negative, so this is a negative 61. Okay, so that rule follows. These you can maybe do in your head or on a number line. This one you couldn't. You're going to have to follow this rule to come out with that total. Let me do a few more. Okay. These will also look a little bit different. So let's do -8 plus 10 and -57 plus 86. Now what you notice about these is, this one's a little bit easier to see that they're one of each kind because I've put the negative first. But this is a -8, and see I cover up everything but the number, -8. And then once you cover up that -8, you're left with a positive 10. So they're the signs of each. That's a negative and a positive. So we do it the same way as we just did those other ones. I go up here, subtract the smaller from the bigger. And so I subtract the smaller from the bigger, get 2. And then this bigger number is positive, so that's a positive 2. Okay? Let's do this one. Okay, and like I said, this one kind of makes sense on a number line. If you're 8 in the hole, but then you put $10 in your bank account, you'd be 2 in the positive. This one's a little bit harder that you can't quite do in your head, but if you go up here, subtract the smaller from the bigger. So we're going to subtract 57 from 86. So it's 16 minus 9, or 16 minus 7, and then 7 minus 5 is 29. Then my answer is 29, okay? The bigger number is positive, so it's a positive 29, and that's my answer, is positive 29, okay? It's going to take some practice. I'm going to put your assignment ones up here. I want you to try them. Okay, and the main thing is kind of go through those rules, get some feel. Always remember, though, it's a two-step process. First step, get rid of double signs, which I'm not going to put any double signs on these. You're going to work with just the second step, okay? Oh, I'm sorry. We were going to go back to those original problems. That's what I did. So we're going to go back up to the ones that we changed. Remember, we had 12 minus 9. Number 2, we had -3 plus 4. Okay. Number 3, we had -17 minus 12. These are those ones that I had you change the double signs and we corrected at the beginning of this video. Okay, now we're going to do the second step, either A or B, and figure out what the value is then, okay? So let's practice the second step. This was the first step to get him to here, and now we're going to practice the second step. Second step says this one's positive, this one's negative. See, it's a positive 12. Cover up that positive 12, and it's a negative 9. That second step then says one of each. Subtract the numbers. You get 3. The bigger number is positive, so it's a positive 3. Okay. The -3 plus 4. Okay. You're going to take one of them's positive, one of them's negative, so go over here and subtract it. And the bigger number is positive, so it's a positive 1. Okay. This one, they're both negative. Okay. See, this is -17. If I cover that up then, it is -12. So you got two negatives. So when they're the signs are the same, you add them. You get 29. Both of the numbers are negative, so it stays negative. It's -29. Okay, this one, same thing. They're both positive. That's a positive 15, a positive 14. So add them. And because they're both positive, this is positive 29. I didn't plan that, but it happened. Okay. This one, they're both negative, so same signs, add them together. And because they're both negative, it stays a negative. It's negative 23. Okay. So those are those doing those. I wanted to do those with you to finish those off to see that's how their values would come out. Okay. Now I'm going to put the ones that I want you to do for an assignment. Okay. And if I'm going fast, pause this, go through it, check them. That way you can go at your speed. I try to keep these videos short as I can though, so you're not watching like 45 minutes of me talking on a whiteboard here. So let's put these problems up. I want you to do -7 plus 18. I want you to do 12 minus 24. I want you to do -3 minus 8 here. So it's -3, -8. I want you to do 16 plus 37. And then let's do 8 minus 5. And let's do 27 minus 48. Okay? So we have you do those, try those. And like I said, we'll keep practicing and go from there.